The Winter Wishkeeper, a blue fairy tale bedtime story for adults. Before we start tonight's tale, take the time to like this video and subscribe to my channel to never miss one of my new stories. Settle yourself comfortably. Let your breathing slow. Allow the tensions of the day to drift away like leaves on a gentle stream. Close your eyes if you wish, and let yourself be carried back through the longest night of the year. It arrives softly, as it always does, not with fanfare, but with the quiet inevitability of a breath held too long. On December 21st, when the earth tilts away from the sun and darkness claims its greatest territory, the blue fairy stands at the edge of her sanctuary in the winter forest. She is older than the stories tell. Not the bright-eyed creature from children's tales, but something weathered and wise, her blue gown now the color of twilight, her hair silvered like frost on window panes. She has been the keeper of wishes since before wishes had names, since the first humans looked at stars and dared to hope. But tonight, something is wrong. The wishes are fading. The sanctuary exists between worlds, in that gossamer space where dreams and waking meet. It manifests as a clearing in an endless winter forest, where silver birches stand sentinel and the ground glitters with permanent frost. Here, children's wishes arrive like falling stars, tiny motes of light that spiral down from the darkness, each one carrying the weight of a child's deepest hope. I wish my grandmother would get better. I wish we had enough food. I wish my parents would stop fighting. I wish I was brave. The blue fairy has tended these wishes for millennia, nurturing them in the sanctuary until they grow strong enough to return to the world as courage, as opportunity, as the small miracles that keep hope alive. This has been her work since humans first learned to dream. But tonight, the wishes arrive dim and flickering. They drift down like dying embers, barely strong enough to light the darkness. By the time they reach her outstretched hands, many have already gone dark. She catches one, a wish from a girl who wants her brother to come home from war. It pulses weakly in her palm, its light struggling. As she watches, it dims further, as if something is draining it. The fairy closes her eyes and follows the wish thread backward, tracing it through the dreaming world to its source. What she finds makes her luminescence flicker with recognition and dread. There, wrapped around the wish threads like a parasitic vine, is a creature of frost and hunger, a spirit born from despair, feeding on hope itself. In the old traditions, such creatures were known. The Norse called them wish-eaters, spirits that emerged during the darkest times to feed on human longing. They were why the ancient peoples lit bonfires during Solstice, to drive back not just the darkness, but the things that lived in it. The fairy has encountered them before, across centuries, but never one this strong. Never during the longest night, when the veil between worlds grows thin and such creatures gain their greatest power. She must act quickly. Without the wishes reaching her sanctuary, children across the world will wake with their hopes extinguished, their resilience drained. And in a world already heavy with darkness, that loss might be the weight that breaks everything. The blue fairy steps out of her sanctuary and into the dreamscape, that vast, shifting realm where human consciousness swirls and dances. During waking hours, it's a turbulent ocean of thoughts and memories. But at night, especially on the solstice, it crystallizes into something navigable. Tonight, It has frozen into a landscape of ice palaces and crystalline forests. Each structure is a dream taking physical form, some beautiful, some nightmarish, all of them real in the way that matters here. She walks through a palace made of frozen tears, where child's fear of abandonment has manifested as endless empty rooms. She passes through a forest where trees are made of solidified anxiety, their branches sharp as knives. These are the dreams touched by the frost spirit's passage, dreams it has fed upon and left hollow. Following the wish threads deeper, she begins to see where the parasite has been. Each dream it has touched bears the same signature, a crystalline pattern of frost that spreads like infection, turning vibrant hopes into brittle, frozen things. In one dream, she finds a young boy building castles. But as she watches, frost creeps across his creation, and the walls crumble. The boy begins again, but the frost returns faster each time. She understands. This is a child who has learned that dreaming hurts, that hope itself has become the enemy. "Not on my watch," she whispers, and places her hand on the dream's surface. Blue light spreads from her touch, warm and alive, melting the frost. The boy's castle stands, but the effort costs her. A little of her own light dims. As she moves deeper into the frozen dreamscape, following the trail of the frost spirit, the blue fairy encounters three beings, manifestations of human virtues that have taken form in this liminal space. They are old magic, older even than her, born from humanity's first attempts to codify what it means to be good. The first is the guardian of courage, a figure made of golden fire, burning steady and warm even in this frozen place. It appears as a young soldier, an old woman climbing stairs, a child standing up to a bully, shifting between forms, showing that courage wears many faces. "The frost spirit has passed this way," the guardian says. "It feeds on fear, and there is much fear in the world tonight. Children are afraid of tomorrow. Adults are afraid they failed. The old are afraid they'll be forgotten. This fear gives the parasite strength." "How do I fight something fed by fear?" the fairy asks. "The same way you always have," the guardian replies. "By remembering that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the small act of trying anyway." The guardian reaches out and touches the fairy's hand. Warmth spreads through her, steadying her light. She nods her thanks and continues on. The second guardian appears in a garden of frozen flowers, blooms caught mid-opening, their petals encased in ice. This is the guardian of kindness, manifesting as 1,000 small moments, a hand offered, a meal shared, a word of comfort spoken into darkness. The spirit grows strong on cruelty, the guardian tells her. Every harsh word, every turn back, every moment when kindness was needed and denied, these things feed it. But kindness is a weapon too. Small acts create ripples. They remind people they are not alone. "I'm tired," the blue fairy admits, and it's true. Centuries of tending wishes, of watching humans hurt each other and themselves, of seeing the same patterns repeat. It weighs on her. "All guardians grow tired," the figure says gently. "But look." It gestures to the frozen garden. Even here, in the deepest freeze, the flowers remember how to bloom. They wait. They endure. This is also a kind of kindness, to yourself, to the world. To keep going when going seems impossible. The guardian touches each frozen flower, and one by one, they begin to glow from within. Not blooming, not yet, but lit with potential, with the promise of spring. The fairy feels something shift in her chest. She's not alone in this work. She never has been. The third guardian is the strangest and most familiar. It appears as a mirror, perfectly reflective, showing the fairy her own face. This is the guardian of truth. The frost spirit's greatest power, the guardian says in the fairy's own voice, is the lie it tells. That hope is foolish. That wishes are childish. That growing up means giving up. This is the cold that kills. The fairy looks at her reflection, at the tiredness in her eyes, the dimness of her light. What if it's right? She asks. What if I'm just enabling delusion? The world is hard. Maybe preparing children for disappointment is kinder than filling them with false hope. Is that what you believe wishes are? Her reflection asks. False hope. The fairy thinks of all the wishes she's tended. Most don't come true the way children imagine. The grandmother still dies. The family still struggles. The brother doesn't always come home. But the wishes change the children who make them. The act of hoping, of believing in possibility, gives them strength to endure. The boy who wished to be brave finds courage he didn't know he had. The girl who wished for her family's safety learns to create safety for others. Wishes aren't magic spells that change the world. They are seeds that change the wisher. Hope isn't a promise that things will be okay, the guardian says. It's the strength to keep going when they are not. That's the truth you guard. That's why the frost spirit fears you. The mirror shatters, and each shard becomes a star, rising into the frozen sky. The fairy understands. Truth, like light, reflects and multiplies. One honest moment can illuminate many darknesses. Finally, she reaches the heart of the dreamscape, where the frost spirit has made its lair. Her sanctuary has been encased in ice, walls of it, translucent and impenetrable, forming a maze that spirals inward. At the center, she can see the parasite. It's larger than she expected, a writhing mass of crystalline hunger, pulsing with stolen light from 1,000 dimmed wishes. It has grown fat on despair, bloated on every moment when hope failed. The labyrinth is designed to trap her, to force her to wander until her own light dims. But the blue fairy has walked through human consciousness for millennia. She knows the secret of mazes. They are just fear given form. And fear loses power when you stop running from it. She walks forward, not trying to solve the labyrinth, simply moving through it. Where ice blocks her path, she places her hand against it and pushes. The ice resists, then cracks, then shatters. Each broken wall costs her some of her light, but she doesn't stop. The frost spirit notices her approach. It rears up, no longer shapeless, but taking form, a massive creature of ice and shadow, with eyes like frozen tears. "Why do you persist?" it asks, its voice the sound of hope dying. "You know how this ends. You've seen it 1,000 times. Children grow up and stop believing. Dreams break. Wishes go unanswered. I am inevitable. I am the truth that comes after hope." "No," the fairy says quietly. "You're just fear wearing truth's face. And you're just a story," the spirit hisses. "A fairy tale invented to make the darkness bearable. When I consume you, when your light goes out, what will the children have then?" "Each other," the fairy says. "They've always had each other. I'm not their hope. I'm just the one who reminds them it exists. The confrontation cannot be won by force. The frost spirit is too strong, too fed on the world's accumulated despair. The blue fairy understands what must be done. Every guardian pays a price. The old solstice traditions knew this. The Yule log burned itself to give warmth. The sun, in mythology, died and was reborn. Sacrifice is the engine of transformation. The fairy opens herself fully, not fighting the frost spirit, but embracing it. She lets it pour into her, all that hunger and cold and despair. She takes it into herself, accepts it as part of the world she protects. And then she transforms it. Because here's the secret the frost spirit never understood. Darkness and light aren't opposites. They are partners in the dance of existence. The longest night exists so that dawn feels like a miracle. Despair teaches us the value of hope. Fear shows us what courage means. The fairy doesn't destroy the frost spirit. She integrates it, accepts it, and in accepting it, robs it of its power. The ice begins to melt. The walls of the labyrinth collapse. The sanctuary emerges, no longer encased but renewed. But the cost is real. When the transformation completes, the blue fairy's light has dimmed to a soft glow, barely visible. She's no longer the bright beacon she once was. She looks almost human now, fragile, finite, touched by mortality. The wishes begin to fall again, bright and strong, spiraling down from the darkness. But now they fall not just to the sanctuary, but everywhere, landing in dreams across the world like seeds in winter soil. The blue fairy stands in her sanctuary as dawn approaches. The winter solstice is ending. The longest night is giving way to the slow return of light. She is dimmer now, yes, but something else has happened. The wishes she tended don't need her as much anymore. In her sacrifice, she scattered them across the dreamscape, making them accessible to everyone. Children don't need to reach her sanctuary to find hope. They carry it with them now, sparked by her light but sustained by their own strength. This is how guardians age, she realizes. Not by fading away, but by teaching others to carry the light themselves. In Japanese tradition, people soak in yuzu baths on the solstice to ward off the winter cold and protect themselves from illness. In Iran, families gather for Yalda night, staying awake to greet the sun and celebrate the victory of light over darkness. In China, families make tang yuan rice balls to honor the returning warmth. Across cultures and centuries, humans have marked this night with the same understanding. Darkness is not the end. It's the necessary pause before the light returns. The blue fairy is part of this eternal cycle now, not above it. Diminished, but not defeated. Tired, but not broken. She sits down in the snow of her sanctuary, and for the first time in millennia, she closes her eyes, not to work, not to watch, but simply to rest. Above her, the stars begin to fade as dawn approaches. In bedrooms across the world, children wake from dreams they can't quite remember, carrying with them a feeling they can't quite name, a quiet certainty that today might be hard, but trying is still worth it. The wishes have found their way home. And in the winter forest, as the first light of the year's rebirth touches the horizon, the blue fairy, dimmer now, smaller, more human, smiles. Here are some historical notes you might be interested in. The blue fairy, or fairy with turquoise hair, was created by Italian author Carlo Collodi in his 1881 serial story The Adventures of Pinocchio. In Collodi's original tale, she was a more complex figure than Disney's 1940 adaptation, appearing first as a seemingly dead child, then growing into a maternal figure who guided Pinocchio through moral lessons. Scholars believe she may have been inspired by Giovanna Raggieri, a gardener's daughter Collodi knew, or perhaps represented the author's sister who died in childhood. The winter solstice on December 21st has been celebrated across cultures for millennia as the turning point of the year, the moment when the darkening of days reverses and light begins its slow return. Ancient peoples from Norse pagans to Celtic druids to Roman celebrants of Saturnalia marked this time with fire, feasts, and rituals designed to encourage the sun's return. The word solstice comes from Latin sol, sun, and sister, to stand still, the moment when the sun appears to pause before reversing its course. Many modern holiday traditions descend from these ancient solstice celebrations. The Yule log, from Norse tradition, evergreen decorations, from Celtic practices, and the emphasis on light overcoming darkness all echo our ancestors' response to the longest night. The theme of hope enduring through darkness is as old as human consciousness itself, passed down through countless stories, traditions, and quiet acts of courage on cold winter nights. Sleep well. The light returns tomorrow.